Hey, welcome back. We're so glad you joined us today for the Dallas Metro podcast. You know, whatever format you're looking on this, be sure and like us so that you don't miss not one of our podcasts. You know, our goal each week is to give you a nugget, something that you can use in life today. And then we're going to be talking about what God is doing in the inner city of Dallas and then the dream the Lord has given to us. Hey, with us today is Pedro Esparza. Hey, Pedro.
Hey.
So glad to have you today. It's so nice to say your name in a positive way today. You know,
When is it not positive?
yeah, see what I'm talking about? You know, Pedro actually showed up early today, and I said, you know, Pedro, I've known you your entire life. First time I remember you being early.
That's not the first. It's not like maybe a few, but not the first.
Maybe a few
Yeah.
times late or a
Yeah.
few times early.
Well, a few times early.
Yeah.
I'll admit most of the time I will be late.
You know, last week we met with Ebony, and Ebony she talked about how Metro has impacted her life, and I admit, you know, she's a pretty tough act to follow, and yet your story is different than hers. You know, Ebony, a bus came to her neighborhood and picked her up, whereas for you, Metro came to your neighborhood. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was about 5 years old, in Oak Cliff, it was the Coombs Creek site. Dallas Metro was there, and my older sister Becky would take me to the program. I remember they had the puppets, and we'd get like pretty much a quarter of a watermelon, like as a promotion, or snow cones.
Well, that sounds good today, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Then we moved, so we were there went to that program for like a year. We moved up to a different neighborhood in North Dallas. The site was Apple Creek.
Yeah, you might want to qualify for our people when you say North Dallas, because when they think of North Dallas, they may think you're talking about Highland Park.
No, I'm talking about Webb Chapel. The Webb Chapel area. No, it's not a very nice or safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
I remember. One time, like looking out the window and seeing like two gangs walking toward each other, and before they could meet, my dad grabs me and is like, "Get down."
Get down.
But yeah, we went up there to Apple Creek, and Dallas Metro was there. And it just kind of goes to show Dallas Metro, puts themselves in those neighborhoods, put themselves in those situations to love on people that usually get forgotten or that think are unredeemable sometimes. I know a lot of my friends, you know, we're growing up with those influences, and I was too, and was able to see that in my neighborhood and be impacted by such a positive influence for that was life-changing for me and life-changing for my entire family as well, and a bunch of my friends. And so, yeah.
So what was it like when that truck showed up in the neighborhood? Let's talk about that truck, because most people don't even know what a Dallas Metro sidewalk truck. What's that even look like?
Yeah, so it's like a big moving truck, like kind of a U-Haul Ryder Penske truck, and the side of it got cut out, and it folds down into a stage. There's a sound system on it. But today they have TVs, but back then there was puppet stages. There was a puppet. They park it out on the curb, put out some tarps in the grass next to the curb, and then kids sit on it. And I remember probably like 400 kids out there in Apple Creek out on those tarps, and it would probably break 1,000 on Christmas on the Christmas programs. And
1,000 kids at one place.
Yeah.
Had to be a little chaotic, right?
Really deep.
Hey, what brought them to that? What? How come? Why did 1,000 kids show up at Christmas time?
Well, there was just joy, right, and love, and you kind of got that sense every time that I interacted with someone from Dallas Metro. I felt loved, right, and I was treated as like I meant something, right? My life means something, and and I have value, and I'm worth going to meet, and I'm worth going to, and because like many people don't come around those neighborhoods, um, and when they do, they don't bring something positive, right? And so, uh, like having people come that weren't there to try to sell something to my parents, or weren't there to try to find something to steal, or someone to beat up. I don't know. They were there to look for us kids who usually get looked over, and to build a relationship with us. And yeah, it made me feel special, and I wanted to be there. And I'm sure all those other 1,000 kids were like, I want to go there, and feel special.
How did Dallas Metro build a relationship with you? How did that come about?
Yeah. So with me, there's a couple people like Ronnie Nelson was someone who I kind of built a relationship
Ronnie
with.
Nelson, Roll Tide, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He loves his Bama.
He does love his Bama, right?
Lisa Jeffcoat, I remember her being there.
Lisa
Yep.
J.
Yep, I remember.
We're going to see Lisa
yeah.
J at camp here just in a
Yep.
few days, right?
Yep, couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and Barbara were there. Becky talks of, like, when I talked to Becky, my older sister, about this, she talks about her relationship with Barbara back then a lot. And for me, like, I really hit the turning point with my relationship with John Stanley, who was actually just a volunteer at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so today, it just, because, like, today I'm a volunteer. And that's been a big influence in my life here 20 years later, right? And seeing that the impact, because when I saw John Stanley, I didn't see a volunteer, I saw Dallas Metro. Mm-hmm. And so that's what people see when they see me in these neighborhoods. And yeah, I mean, just last week we had this big Mother's Day thing, and I just, the couple years I've been in this neighborhood, I've built relationships with the families, the moms, and I was able to get a bunch of moms to show up, and I think that was through the relationships I had built with the moms too. And it kind of goes to show that, yeah, like, there's relationships with the kids, but the families end up being impacted through this ministry. And yeah.
You had mentioned about your dad, and obviously your parents are my heroes. There's a lot of examples out there today of what a parent should be. Your parents are the right example, for your family. But talk to me a little bit about the impact. When you moved to the Apple Creek area, which is just northwest of Bachman Lake, for those that are familiar with the city. As you mentioned, it was a lot of drug traffic,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of illegal things taking place in that neighborhood, a lot of people living there that did not come into this country legally.
Yep.
And so the problem with that, it's not that they were here illegally that was a problem. The problem was they were afraid.
Mm-hmm.
When there was problems, nobody knew. They knew they weren't calling the police because they were afraid of immigration, right?
Yep.
So that kind of perpetuated. It became a stomping ground, you might say, for violence and crime.
Yep.
And that came right to your doorstep. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was so I was out on a missions trip with the youth with Dallas Metro, and then back home.
Now, was that the trip to Mobile?
I think it was the one to Mobile, okay. Alabama.
Yeah, yep. We went to Mobile to work with Bill and Cheryl Gray.
Yep.
Heroes of the Faith, brother. They built a ministry center. Remember, in the projects.
Yep.
In Mobile.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that the story you're about to tell took place during that week, because it was a great week in Mobile.
Yes, it was.
Not so much in Dallas, Texas.
Though. No, yeah. yeah, when I came home, uh, my parents had waited to tell me, but while I was out there, my sisters, because my older sister might have been maybe 13, 14 at the time, 15 maybe. Um, she um, she was babysitting my other sisters because my parents were working, and someone broke into our apartment and raped my sister. And yeah, we were, uh, there's always crime around there. Um, we just like when you live in it, it just becomes normal, and so um, you don't think much of it, right? Because you see it every day, and so it's normal. But it's different when it hits your home. Um, it's different when it affects your family, and it affects your feeling of you know feeling safe. Because what was weird is, even though there was all this crime coming around, um, we just kind of knew how to keep our heads down, stay away from it. And so through that, there was a sense of security and safety, and that was ripped away. And my um, the next few days, we were kind of staying, try to like spending the night with family and stuff, just because my sisters didn't feel safe living there. Um, so I remember going to you. Um, I was probably 12 at the time, 11 or 12. And I asked, I know Dallas Metro had apartments, and I said, hey, is it okay if we move in there for a bit until we find a new place to live? And yeah, you welcomed my family with open arms, and you had a spot for us to go in and feel safe. And so, yeah, and we moved in, and I thought it would be for a couple weeks, and
It's been a little longer.
it's been a little longer.
And your mom has taught bilingual
Yep.
Sunday school class for moms for a
Yep.
lot of years.
Hmm.
Volunteers with us on Saturdays, and obviously is very, very active. And the beautiful part about your sister, Becky, Sunday, Becky spoke at our church, brought a powerful word. As a
Yep.
matter of fact, I was sitting there and I'm watching her and I'm going, this is a little girl that sat on our tarps,
Hmm.
who is now bringing a powerful word from the Lord for our people. So
Yep.
God's brought her full circle.
Oh,
right? Yeah.
Yep.
You know, after you attended Sunday school, you became a volunteer. We had a teen program that I had the privilege of working. I use that word privilege loosely. I worked with you guys every Saturday, and we had a habit of going and eating food on the street.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Go ahead and share with
Yeah.
that. Go ahead, share the story about how
Yeah.
one day that didn't quite go quite so well for one of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember. We were all. It was a Saturday. Yeah. We would have Metro on Saturdays, and a bunch of the youth would come and volunteer in their own neighborhoods or in other neighborhoods around Dallas, which is just, I think, a prime example of how Dallas Metro makes disciples, right? And that's the greatest thing you can do. I believe. Let's love God, love people. You love people by making them disciples. We were gonna eat lunch, gonna get some food, and we convinced you to try tongue tacos. And
I remember it well.
yeah,
For several days, I remember it well.
yeah, and you were trying to be a good sport.
Yeah.
And you tried them.
I did try them. I was sick for days, brother, after that was over with. The teenagers all had a good time at my expense. that day and for the days ahead.
Mm.
You know, we mentioned a while ago about your sister speaking
Mhm.
at a Dallas Metro church, and that's something that became a result of us ministering to the teenagers, the children, and the teenagers. We realized that, as you mentioned too, you know, the Bible doesn't say go into all the world and get people saved. That's what
Mhm.
we like to teach. That's not what it says. It
Right.
says go into all the world and make disciples.
Yes.
And so you need a tool to do that, and so that's where Dallas Metro Church comes in. Uh, remember when we started, we didn't have a band.
Mhm.
We didn't have any musicians. We had nothing. As a matter of fact, some weeks, as bad as it sounds, we actually had me leading, and that's
We had videos.
that's not a yeah, that's true. I
Yeah.
forgot about that. We did videos for CFNI, but then we had a student from CFNI.
Mhm.
His name was Jeremy.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience with Jeremy.
Yeah. Jeremy came, and he was there with a piano and a microphone.
Yep.
And was setting an atmosphere for people to have an encounter with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it with the tools he had, and that kind of motivated me to become more interested in music, and to see that I could also try to help usher people into having an encounter with God. And so I started to try to teach myself the drums. And the very first week, I sat there and I was just like boom, ta, just very, very simple beat. And then I don't remember who, but somebody had the bright idea of letting Jeremy know that I was trying to learn to play the drums. and 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 it had only been maybe a week. And so he comes up to me, because he's up there alone anyway. So he's like, "Hey, you should come play the drums with me." And I'm like, "When?" He's like, "This week." I'm like, "I've only been touching these things for like a week." He's like, "It'll be okay." And so he made me get on the drums, and I tried playing, and I played horribly. It was so bad. And I was thinking, he's never going to ask me to play again. And then but to my surprise, the next week, he asked me to play again. And again, then the week after that. And so he helped build me into a better musician. And he helped me understand the purpose of worship. And he helped me understand kind of how to blend music with being aware of like what God wants out of us to help the church. And so
Each week, one of our goals is to give people a nugget, something they can work with. And when you said that about basically what Jeremy was saying to you is what's in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it reminded me of Exodus chapter 4, verse 2. It says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'What's that in your hand?'" Jeremy looked at you and he went, "What's in your hand?" He saw drumsticks. I think he saw something more than just that, though. He saw your heart. That was, the Bible says David had a man after God's own heart. I believe when Jeremy looked at you, he saw a young man after God's own heart. And there are people watching us today. They're going, we won't put you in this category. We put me in this category. I don't have any talent.
Uh-huh.
I don't have anything to offer the Lord. And yet you thought that whenever you first talked to Jeremy, you thought you didn't have anything to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he saw the Lord had placed in you a heart after him. And it's changed your life. As we wrap up our time together, the Lord has given us this incredible dream of building brand new facilities for this next generation of leaders. And he's raised up new leaders. We just spoke with Ebony, who's serving as chair of our board. You're a volunteer, and you are committed to Metro. You are one of those young new leaders that God is raising up. So for those who are watching today, what would you tell them? Why should they get involved and help us build these new facilities?
Yeah. So these facilities will help create more me's. People who like sometimes feel just like you said earlier, Jesus wasn't so concerned about going to people to fix their sin. He was going to people and showing them love, and then like through that love, they turn to God, and the sin, and let God fix the sin, right? And so, and I think like when Dallas Metro shows up to these neighborhoods, they have that different approach of I'm here to love you, regardless of what you're doing with your life, and that love as through like the results that we've seen, that's really the way that lives are changed. That's really the way that people turn their lives around, and having those facilities will help Dallas Metro make a greater impact, and in allowing us to have our, just as simple as having a set stage that we don't have to go in and tear up and tear down, that allows people more time to spend with people and build relationships and show them love, which is the way that lives are changed.
Right. Yeah, we are committed to building these new facilities to not just reach the kids that we have today or the families we have today. There are thousands and thousands of children just like you, families just like yours. They don't know about Metro. They don't know that there's somebody out there that cares for them.
Mm-hmm.
And these new facilities will allow us to reach more families than we have done, I believe, the first 35 years. And this facility, it's actually going to be 3 buildings. You know about this. Ministry Center, about 20,000 square feet. Had an auditorium in it that will, the indoor program that you're a part of on Saturdays, and then, of course, Sundays. And Tuesday night, which is our midweek for our youth. We have a large meeting area for feeding. Feeding is something that we do for our families on a regular basis, small groups. Children's areas, obviously, and of course the youth got to have that game room,
Mm-hmm.
and offices for our staff. And the second building is a warehouse. You talk about the needs. We have to have some place to store that, whether it's food or clothing, household, whatever, those type things. And the third building is, the Lord's laid on our heart to have a prayer chapel. Everything begins in prayer. How many times you've heard us say, everything begins
And ends.
See?
Yep.
In prayer. We need a place that where people can come 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime they want to, and can be in the presence of the Lord. And that's the third building. And then we also want to have a large outdoor space that we can use as an overflow when we have large events. And the last thing is we need to secure parking for our vehicles.
Yes.
People ask all the time, they say, how many buses do you have? I said, there's not a question of how many we have. How many do we have parts for that are running today,
How many can run?
That's exactly it. How many can run today? And so a part of that is, a large part of that is theft. And so we need some place secure to park those. Now, that within itself is a big dream.
Mm-hmm.
But the bigger dream is we believe the Lord's asking us to do this absolutely debt-free. We're committed to putting you,
Mm-hmm.
this new generation of leaders, we're committed to putting you in a position to win. You don't put a generation in a position to win by leaving behind heavy debt. Could we borrow the money? Of course we could. Sure we could. And then we would leave behind, a 30-year note that would be tens of thousands of dollars every single month, money that could be used and should be used
Mm-hmm.
to reach people for Christ. And so our big dream is to do this absolutely debt-free. So if you were telling somebody today, hey, I'd like to, why should they help us with this?
Yeah.
Why should they invest today?
They should invest because this is a place that's going to change lives. It's a place that's going to allow a place for people to go where they feel safe and they can get out of their neighborhood. They can get out of their toxic home for a moment, and because sometimes we need that. And I remember being able as a teenager, as a child, going to Metro's facilities when they had them back on Fort Worth Avenue, and feeling safe. And
well said, Pedro. Thanks for being here today. Friends, thank you for being with us here today. If you would like to help us with this big God dream He's given to us, you can donate today at dallasmetro.org. Also, be sure and like us on your platform so you can watch our podcast every single week. Thanks for stopping by today. God bless you, friends.